When you walk into a dimly lit room, find a seat among strangers and stare at a giant illuminated wall, you are participating in a ritual that is both incredibly modern and deeply ancient. You are signing a silent contract to suspend your disbelief, to forget your own life, and to inhabit a dream constructed by someone else. Cinema is not merely entertainment. It is the most sophisticated form of psychological manipulation humanity has ever devised. It is a machine that hacks your biology, controlling your pulse, your tears, and your dopamine levels with a precision that neuroscientists would envy. To understand how movies are made is to understand how the human mind constructs reality itself. Consider for a moment the very foundation of the medium, movement. The term movie implies motion, yet the screen you watch is arguably the greatest lie of all. There is no movement on the screen. There never has been. A film is simply a collection of still photographs, usually 24 of them for every second of time. If you looked at the physical film strip, you would see a frozen image of a man raising his hand, followed by another frozen image of his hand slightly higher. Between these images is a black line, a moment of darkness. When these images are flashed before your eyes at speed, your brain fails. It cannot process the darkness between the frames. It holds on to the first image just long enough to blend it with the second. This flaw in our biology is called the persistence of vision. You are not watching a moving picture. You are hallucinating continuity where there is none. You are actively creating the movie in your own head, bridging the gaps of darkness with your own imagination. In the early days of this technology, the illusion was so powerful it caused genuine hysteria. In 1896, when the Lumiere brothers projected a 50-second film of a train arriving at a station, the audience did not marvel at the technology. They panicked. They screamed. Some ducked under their seats, and others ran to the back of the room. Their brains, unaccustomed to the language of cinema, could not distinguish the representation of the train from the reality of tons of steel barreling towards them. We laugh at them now, thinking we are sophisticated, but we are just as susceptible. We flinch at 3D objects flying towards us. We feel vertigo when a drone camera swoops over a cliff. The technology has improved, but our primal brain remains easily tricked. This trickery extends far beyond simple motion. It seeps into the very color of the world presented to us. In the real world, colors are chaotic and random. A red shirt is just a red shirt. In cinema, color is a language, a code that bypasses your logic and speaks directly to your emotions. Directors and colorists spend months in dark rooms manipulating the color palette of a film to dictate how you feel. Think about the last horror movie you watched. It is highly likely the entire film was bathed in cold blues and sickly greens. These colors are unnatural for skin tones. They make characters look dead, breathless, or ill. They trigger a subconscious revulsion or unease. Conversely, think of a warm, nostalgic flashback. It is drenched in gold, amber, and soft yellow. It mimics the feeling of sunlight, triggering a sense of safety and comfort. This manipulation has become so standardized that Hollywood has developed a formula known as the orange and teal look. If you pause almost any blockbuster action movie from the last decade, you will notice that the shadows are pushed towards teal blue, and the highlights, particularly skin tones, are pushed towards orange. This isn't an artistic accident. On the color wheel, blue and orange are exact opposites. Placing them next to each other creates the highest possible contrast, which is visually stimulating to the human eye. The movie is literally engineered to be eye candy, keeping your visual cortex engaged even if the plot is boring. You are not just watching a story, you are being fed a carefully calibrated visual stimulant. But while your eyes are being dazzled, your ears are being deceived in ways that are even more profound. We tend to think of cinema as a visual medium, but sound is often the true carrier of emotion. You can close your eyes during a scary movie and still feel terrified, but if you mute the sound, the monster looks ridiculous. Sound design operates on a primal level. One of the most terrifying tools in a sound designer's arsenal is infrasound. These are sound waves with a frequency below 20 Hz. They are too low for the human ear to consciously hear, but not too low for the body to feel. In nature, infrasound is produced by earthquakes, avalanches, and the low growl of predators like tigers. When humans are exposed to it, we experience physical symptoms, shivering, anxiety, sorrow, and a sense of impending doom. Horror filmmakers often inject these sub-audible frequencies into the soundtrack during suspenseful scenes. You sit in the theater feeling a deep, inexplicable dread, thinking it is because of the ghost on the screen. But in reality, your body is reacting to a synthetic earthquake being pumped through the subwoofers. Even silence is weaponized. In the real world, true silence is rare. In movies, silence is a narrative device. When a bomb goes off in a war movie, the sound often cuts out completely, leaving a high-pitched ringing. This is not what a bomb sounds like. It is what trauma feels like. The filmmakers are not replicating reality. They are replicating the subjective experience of the character. They are forcing you to inhabit the character's head, to hear what they hear, or rather, what they fail to hear. This creates a bond of empathy that is instantaneous and unbreakable. You are no longer an observer. You are a participant. This psychological merging of audience and character is achieved primarily through the art of editing. Editing is the heartbeat of cinema. It controls the flow of time. In real life, you cannot skip the boring drive to work or fast forward through an awkward conversation. In movies, the editor slices out the dull bits, leaving only the moments of significance. But editing does more than just compress time. It creates meaning. In the 1910s, a Soviet filmmaker named Lev Kuleshov demonstrated this with a famous experiment. He took a single close-up shot of an actor with a neutral expression. He then showed this shot to an audience 3 times, pairing it with 3 different images. First, he showed the man's face, then a bowl of soup. The audience praised the actor's subtle performance, noting the hunger in his eyes. Next, he showed the same face, then a dead child in a coffin. The audience wept, remarking on the deep grief and tragedy in the man's expression. Finally, he showed the face, followed by a beautiful woman reclining on a sofa. The audience saw lust and desire. The shot of the man never changed. The emotion was not on the screen. It was created in the gap between the 2 images. This is the Kuleshov Effect. It proves that human beings are meaning-making machines. We desperately want to connect the dots, to find the narrative thread. Editors use this to manipulate our sympathies. If they want us to trust a character, they will show their reaction shots when someone else is speaking. If they want us to be suspicious, they will hide the character's face or cut away before we can see their reaction. The structure of the stories we tell is also surprisingly uniform, deeply rooted in the collective human psyche. Whether it is Star Wars, The Lion King, Harry Potter, or The Matrix, almost every blockbuster follows the exact same narrative skeleton known as the hero's journey, or the monomyth, identified by Joseph Campbell. A hero lives in an ordinary world. They receive a call to adventure, which they initially refuse out of fear. A mentor figure appears to guide them. They cross the threshold into a special, dangerous world. They face trials, make allies and enemies. They confront the ultimate evil, face a moment of death and rebirth, and return home changed. Why do we watch this same story over and over again? Why don't we get bored? We don't get bored because this structure mirrors the psychological process of growing up. We all leave the safety of our parents' home, the ordinary world. We all face the trials of adulthood, and we all must eventually confront our own mortality. Movies are not just distractions. They are rehearsals for life. They allow us to experience danger, loss, and triumph in a safe environment, training our emotions for the real world. However, the way these stories are acted out has shifted dramatically over the last century, reflecting a change in how we view truth itself. In the early days of cinema, acting was presentational. It came from the theater tradition. Actors spoke loudly and made grand gestures so the person in the back row could understand what was happening. It was artificial, and everyone knew it. Then came the revolution of method acting, popularized by figures like Marlon Brando and Robert De Niro. The philosophy shifted from pretending to being. If a character was supposed to be tired, the method actor would stay awake for 3 days before filming. If the character was angry, the actor would recall a traumatic memory from their own childhood to induce real rage. This pursuit of hyper-realism has blurred the lines between performance and reality. We now demand that our illusions feel more real than our actual lives. We scrutinize a CGI face for the slightest imperfection in the pores, yet we accept that a man can fly. We live in a paradoxical state where we demand absolute visual fidelity for completely impossible events. This demand for reality has led to the immense importance of production design and architecture in film. A movie set is not just a background. It is an externalization of the internal state of the characters. Consider the towering, oppressive skyscrapers of Blade Runner or Metropolis. These buildings dwarf the humans, pressing down on them, conveying a sense of hopelessness and insignificance without a single line of dialogue being spoken. The architecture tells you how the society functions. In contrast, look at the wide, open vistas of a Western. The horizon is endless, symbolizing absolute freedom and the lawlessness that comes with it. The space dictates the behavior. Filmmakers use leading lines, roads, fences, shadows, to point your eye exactly where they want it. They are architects of attention. If a scene feels chaotic and claustrophobic, look at the set. The walls are likely closing in, the frame is cluttered with objects, and there are no straight lines for the eye to rest on. If a scene feels sterile and cold, you will see perfect symmetry, reflective surfaces, and a lack of organic texture. You are not just looking at a room. You are looking at a mood constructed out of wood and plaster. The technology of capturing these images has also evolved, shifting from the chemical to the digital, and this has fundamentally changed the texture of our memories. For 100 years, movies were shot on celluloid film. Film is an organic material. It has grain, it has imperfections, it breathes. It captures light through a chemical reaction, much like the human eye captures light on the retina. There is a warmth and a chaos to film that feels human. Today, most movies are shot digitally. The image is captured by a sensor, converted into ones and zeros. It is perfect. It is clean. It is distinct. And to many cinephiles, it feels cold. We have reached a point where digital cameras are too good. They see more detail than the human eye. Directors now have to add artificial grain and imperfections in post-production to make the image feel real again. We have become so accustomed to the flawed, gritty texture of film that perfection looks fake to us. This is the uncanny valley of cinematography. When the image is too sharp, too smooth, and too fluid, it stops looking like a movie and starts looking like a soap opera or a news broadcast. It loses its dreamlike quality. We need the grain, the blur, the imperfection to signal to our brains that we are in the realm of storytelling, not the realm of documenting. As we look to the future, the screen itself is disappearing. Virtual reality and augmented reality are threatening to tear up the contract we signed with the cinema. In a movie theater, the director decides where you look. In VR, you decide where you look. The loss of the frame is the loss of control. How do you tell a story when the audience can look at the ceiling while the hero is dying on the floor? This is the new frontier. We are moving from passive viewership to active presence. The psychology will change. The suspension of disbelief will be replaced by the illusion of presence. You won't just empathize with the hero, you will be the hero, but the fundamental hunger will remain the same. Whether we are gathered around a fire in a cave, listening to a hunter tell a tale, or strapped into a haptic suit in a virtual void, we are a species that needs stories to make sense of the chaos of existence. We need the lie to understand the truth. We need the invisible strings to pull us, to make us feel, to remind us that we are not alone in the dark. This connection to the darkness is nowhere more prevalent than in the music that accompanies the images. While sound effects create the physical reality of a scene, the musical score dictates the emotional reality. It is the invisible narrator, whispering to you how to feel about a character before they have even spoken a word. This technique relies heavily on the concept of the leitmotif, a musical phrase associated with a specific character or idea. Think of the two simple notes in Jaws. Da-dum, da-dum. You don't need to see the shark. The moment you hear that interval, your heart rate accelerates. You know the predator is present. This is Pavlovian conditioning. The composer trains you to associate a sound with a threat, and then uses that sound to trigger fear at will. It bypasses the intellectual brain entirely. You cannot reason with a cello. But the manipulation of music goes deeper than simple association. It exploits the mathematics of the human ear. We are biologically wired to perceive certain intervals as happy and others as sad. A major chord feels resolved and stable. A minor chord feels unresolved and melancholic. Directors use this to gaslight the audience. Imagine a scene where a politician is giving a speech about peace. If the music underneath is playing a soaring major melody, you will trust him. You will feel inspired. But if the director puts a low, dissonant drone underneath the exact same speech, you will instinctively feel that he is lying. You will scan his face for deceit. The visual information hasn't changed, but the auditory context has rewritten the truth. This is why you can never truly be objective when watching a film. The music is constantly editorializing the experience, telling you who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, stripping away the nuance of reality. And who are these people we are watching? The phenomenon of the movie star is one of the strangest psychological developments of the 20th century. We do not just watch actors, we form parasocial relationships with them. This is a one-sided relationship where one person invests emotional energy, interest, and time, and the other party, the celebrity, is completely unaware of the other's existence. When a movie star looks into the lens, especially in a close-up, they are breaking the fourth wall of intimacy. To your primitive brain, eye contact signifies a connection. You feel like you know them. You feel like they are your friends. This is why the death of a celebrity often triggers genuine mourning in millions of people who never met them. The movie industry capitalizes on this by creating typecasting. They know you trust Tom Hanks. So, they cast Tom Hanks in roles where immediate trust is required. They use your pre-existing relationship with the actor as a shortcut for character development. You don't need to see his backstory. You already know he's the good guy because he's Tom Hanks. It is a mental shorthand, a hack that allows the story to move faster. But sometimes, the story moves so fast and becomes so powerful that it replaces actual history. This is the historical distortion effect. For many people, their visual memory of the Titanic sinking is not based on archival photos, but on James Cameron's movie. Their understanding of the Vietnam War is filtered through Apocalypse Now, or Platoon. Cinema does not just reflect history, it overwrites it. The emotional power of a narrative film is far stronger than the dry facts of a textbook. When we watch a historical movie, we are encoding those images as memories. Over time, the line between what really happened and what we saw on screen blurs. We begin to remember the actor's face instead of the real person's face. We remember the dramatic speech that was never actually spoken. Cinema becomes the collective memory of our species, and the directors become the historians. This is a dangerous power. It means that whoever controls the screen controls the past. This power to define reality is most potent in the genre of horror. Why do we pay money to be scared? Why do we sit in a dark room and subject ourselves to anxiety? Psychologists call this recreational fear. It is a way to experience the rush of adrenaline and the release of endorphins in a completely controlled environment. It is a safe threat. When you watch a horror movie, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, lights up. It tells your body you are in danger. Your heart pumps faster, your palms sweat. But your frontal lobe, the logical part of your brain, knows you are sitting in a theater. It sends a signal saying, "It's okay, this isn't real." This conflict between the primal brain screaming "run" and the logical brain saying "stay" creates a unique state of arousal that many find addictive. It is a catharsis. It allows us to process our real-world anxieties, fear of death, fear of the unknown, fear of violence, and release them. When the credits roll and the lights come up, we feel a sense of survival. We face the darkness, and we lived. It is a ritual of endurance. In contrast, comedy operates on a completely different neurological mechanism. Benign violation theory. We laugh when something violates our expectations or social norms, a violation, but in a way that is not actually harmful. Benign. A man slipping on a banana peel is funny because it violates the norm of walking upright, but it is benign because we know he isn't seriously hurt. If he fell and broke his neck, it would stop being a comedy and start being a tragedy. Cinema allows us to explore these violations safely. We can laugh at taboo subjects, we can mock authority figures, we can explore the absurdity of life. Comedy is the pressure valve of society. It releases the tension built up by rules and regulations. A good comedy script is a series of rhythmic surprises, a mathematical equation designed to elicit an involuntary respiratory response. Laughter from a room full of strangers at the exact same time. It is a form of mass hypnosis. And what of the future? As we move deeper into the 21st century, the definition of cinema is expanding. We are seeing the rise of interactive storytelling, where the audience makes choices that affect the outcome. This returns us to the oral traditions of old, where the storyteller would adapt the tale based on the reaction of the listeners. But now, it is powered by algorithms. We are moving towards a world where the movie you watch might be different from the movie your friend watches, tailored specifically to your psychological profile. The invisible strings are becoming personalized. The manipulation is becoming surgical. But no matter the technology, the core human need remains unchanged. We need to see ourselves reflected. We need to feel. We need the dark room and the bright light. We need the dream. But dreams are rarely free. And in the world of cinema, the dream often comes with a hidden agenda. Cinema is not just art. It is soft power. It is a tool used by nations to project strength and by corporations to manufacture desire. Consider the concept of the military entertainment complex. It is no secret that Hollywood works closely with government militaries. If a director wants to use real fighter jets or aircraft carriers in their movie, they often get them for a fraction of the cost, or even for free. But there is a catch. The script must be approved by the military liaison. The military is not going to lend millions of dollars of equipment to a movie that makes them look incompetent or evil. As a result, the script changes. The soldiers become more heroic, the mission becomes more noble, and the war becomes more sanitized. When the movie Top Gun was released in 1986, the U.S. Navy set up recruitment booths inside movie theaters. Recruitment numbers skyrocketed by 500%. People walked in to watch a movie. They walked out ready to sign up for war. They didn't sign up because of a logical argument. They signed up because the movie made the danger look cool. This is propaganda at its most effective because it is invisible. You don't feel like you are being preached to. You feel like you are being entertained. This invisible influence extends to the objects the characters touch. We call it product placement, but a more accurate term would be lifestyle engineering. When James Bond drives an Aston Martin or checks his Omega watch, it is not a random choice. Those companies paid millions for those seconds of screen time. But they are not just buying visibility. They are buying association. They are hacking the halo effect. You love James Bond. You admire his confidence, his danger, his sex appeal. By placing a watch on his wrist, the brand is hoping that some of that admiration will bleed over onto the object. They are selling you a shortcut to an identity. They are whispering, if you buy this watch, you will be a little bit more like him. It works because the human brain struggles to separate the traits of a person from the things they own. We are materialistic creatures, and cinema is the ultimate showroom. However, the showroom itself is changing. The cathedral of cinema, the movie theater, is dying. And with it, the shared hallucination is fracturing. For a century, watching a movie was a communal event. You laughed when others laughed. You screamed when others screamed. This emotional contagion amplified the experience. It validated your feelings. But today, the dominant screen is not the silver screen. It is the smartphone screen. We watch movies alone, in bed with headphones on. The content is the same, but the psychology is radically different. When you watch a movie in a theater, you are committed. You cannot pause. You cannot check your texts. You are a prisoner of the director's time. But on a streaming service, you are the master. You can pause, skip, fast forward, or switch to another movie in seconds. The director has lost control of the pacing. This shift has given rise to the Netflix model of storytelling, which is fundamentally different from the cinema model. A movie is designed to end. It has a resolution. You leave the theater with a sense of closure. A streaming series is designed to never end. It is engineered for binge watching. The goal of the algorithm is retention. Therefore, the story structure changes. Episodes don't resolve tension, they increase it. The cliffhanger is no longer a stylistic choice. It is a business necessity. This creates a state of constant, low-level anxiety in the viewer. You don't watch the next episode because you want to. You watch it because your brain needs the dopamine hit of a resolution that the show refuses to give you. We are no longer consuming art. We are feeding an addiction loop. Furthermore, the algorithm is now determining what movies get made in the first place. In the past, a studio executive would use their gut instinct to greenlight a script. Today, data scientists analyze viewing habits. They know exactly when you paused, when you rewound, and when you stopped watching. They know that you like action movies with a female lead, set in space with a comedic tone. They feed this data into a machine, and out comes a movie tailored specifically to the average of all preferences. This leads to the homogenization of culture. Movies start to feel the same because they are all optimizing for the same metrics. The risks disappear. The weird, messy, unique films that often become classics are deemed inefficient by the algorithm. We are entering an era of content rather than cinema. Content is filler. It is background noise designed to keep you subscribed. Cinema is an event. It is a challenge. Yet, despite the algorithms, the propaganda, and the changing screens, the fundamental magic remains. Why? Because the world is unbearable without a narrative. Real life is random. Bad things happen to good people. There is no background music to tell you how to feel. There is no third act where everything is resolved. It is chaos. Cinema offers us something that reality cannot: justice, meaning, structure. In a movie, if a gun is introduced in the first act, it must go off in the third act. This is Chekhov's gun. It promises that everything happens for a reason. It reassures us that there is a design to the universe. We retreat into the dark room not to escape life, but to learn how to endure it. We watch the heroes suffer so that we can learn to suffer. We watch them love so that we can learn to love. And when the lights come up, and we walk back out into the bright, noisy, chaotic world, we carry a piece of that dream with us. We are slightly different than we were 2 hours ago. The invisible strings have pulled us into a new shape. So the next time you sit down to watch a movie, remember, you are not just a spectator. You are a subject in a grand experiment. The colors are painting your mood. The sounds are vibrating your bones. The edit is directing your thoughts. The story is shaping your values. You are wide awake, but you are also fast asleep. And that is the beautiful, terrifying paradox of the cinema.